Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and today we are sneaking in one last video for Gameweek 23 and 100 Experts video. You guys, I couldn't leave this video out, surely not. And today's episode is pretty crazy. It's not all about Haaland, there's some crazy moves going on, captaincy is all over the place, and I cannot wait to share some of the trends we've got this week. So make sure you do drop a like if you do enjoy this series and do subscribe if you're new around here as well. So first of all, a massive thank you to the 100 FPL Experts, pundits and content creators that helped us out this game week. I know there was a really quick turnaround between game weeks this time. So yeah, definitely do appreciate everyone who has lended us a hand this week. Massive shout out to these guys and looking forward to seeing what they're up to. So of our 100 expert managers, 54% are making just one transfer this week. So over half will be making that one transfer. We've got 21% making two transfers. So actually going for the double transfer this week is kind of popular. Many of those are on free transfers, but there are a few taking hits as well, especially those who are making three transfers. Got two people, 2% making three transfers this week. So that does kind of suggest to me that this is a week to be making transfer. Now, nobody is making using a wild card this week, so perhaps not the best week for a wild card, but we do have 23% of managers not making a transfer this week at all, which is about average. This is kind of an average week for not making transfers. Some of you guys are going to need to make transfers, others if you are not, but looking at these trends, it'd be exciting to see which of you guys have these players and which of these players maybe you don't have. Could you think about bringing them in? Looking at the overall player base and who they're bringing in this week, well, it's Erling Haaland time, and you can definitely understand why. A substitute appearance and some pretty positive comments from Pep Guardiola today suggesting that Haaland is ready to start a game. We obviously did have the same situation with De Bruyne. You know, Pep said that De Bruyne was ready to play and then he put him on the bench and had a bench appearance 3 games in a row. But the feeling is that maybe it could be different with Haaland at this time, because if Haaland is available, he is likely to start. The injury is slightly different as well, so I'm not massively concerned. I think Haaland is still a very good shout, and you know, a lot of people are bringing him in. De Bruyne is still popular as he was last game week. People still looking to bring him in as well after his re-emergence as an FPL asset. Gordon has got a load of transfers in as well, as has Trippier. Both of these Newcastle players, of course, playing against Luton and then Fulham and then Bournemouth. It's a really nice run of fixtures for Newcastle over the next 3, so you can definitely understand why there's some popularity there. And aside from that, guys, we've got Diogo Jota popular as well, and maybe some other players, Shea Madison and Connor Bradley, of course, a few transfers in for him. How many of our experts do you think are bringing in Connor Bradley this week? Well, you'll find out in a second. But first of all, who out of these players are the popular ones? Well, it's Haaland, De Bruyne, Gordon and Trippier. The top 4 of the most popular transfers in among the overall player base are also very popular among our experts. And we're going to go into more detail and maybe identify some players that maybe the overall player base are not kind of identifying. They aren't picking up as much, but certainly these 4 at the top, popular among everyone. Everyone likes these players for sure, but there are some players on this list that our experts don't like, and many of them are actually being sold as well. So Madison, Bradley, Tony, Richarlison, Alvarez and Solanke. Man, that is satisfying on the graphic, isn't it, guys? The top players are popular among experts, the bottom players are not. It pretty much is as simple as that. Yeah, of course, the likes of Bradley, you know, very much a knee-jerk transfer in for a lot of people. There's no guarantee he gets game time, and I think a lot of top FPL managers are waiting until after this Arsenal game, but also looking to gather more information about whether Trent and Bradley can play together. And this Arsenal game is a good opportunity to do that, because you don't necessarily want to own our Liverpool defenders against Arsenal anyway. Aside from that, we've got the likes of Madison and Richarlison, obviously blanking soon. Experts, if they'll maybe already have these players, but if they don't, maybe it's a little bit late to be jumping in on them now. Obviously, Julian Alvarez did very well last game week, but maybe our experts are moving away from him, as we're going to see very shortly, and various other players like that. But it seems like the forward situation is pretty clear in what our experts are going to do this week. But first of all, we need to figure out who they are selling. So here he is again, Julian Alvarez, one of the most popular picks among the overall player base for a transfer in, and yet he is being massively transferred out by our experts. Of course, we know that Julian Alvarez's time in the Man City starting 11 is limited. You know, going forward, he's going to see far less game time, which is a shame because he's a fantastic player, but that's just the way it is. And in FPL, we need to focus on those players who are going to be getting minutes, particularly if we're targeting this Man City double game week coming up in Game Week 25. Outside of Alvarez being sold massively, we have got a few other players. You know, we've got Archer here, transfers out for him, and Mubama, so that third forward, I guess. People are looking to remove their kind of third bench forward Who are they going to be bringing in to replace them with? You'll find out very soon. I think you probably already know. Also transfers out for the likes of Bowen and Gross, who have been disappointing in the midfield recently. And there are some decent midfield options emerging with the likes of De Bruyne and Jota high on everyone's list as well. Aside from that, it's a lot of players who are either injured or unavailable. You know, we've got the likes of Colwill, Salah, Isaac and João Pedro, who are all carrying injuries. We're not sure if they're going to be available or not, particularly Isaac and João Pedro, we're not sure. It looks reasonably positive for João Pedro, but Isaac maybe not so much. And of course, you know, we know Salah is not going to be playing. Colwill probably not as well. So yeah, difficult times, and removing injured players is of course usually a pretty good idea, isn't it? Well, we're going to surprise no one here by revealing that Erling Haaland is the most popular transfer in. 54 of our expert managers are bringing him in Game Week 23, and considering I think around 10 to 20% already had Haaland in their team, whether bringing him in last week or having held him for quite some time, we're going to see Haaland probably at around 75% ownership among the top FPL managers, which really is quite significant. He is, over the next 1 or 2 game weeks, he is going to become like pretty much at 100% owned player all over again. An absolute template must-own kind of player. So yeah, if you can get Haaland, I wouldn't wait around too much unless you are strongly feeling that he's not going to start. And that is the risk. We don't know for 100% if Haaland is going to be starting in Game Week 23. Is he going to get another bench appearance before getting his first start in the Premier League? It's really is up in the open, up in the air. We're not exactly sure. But like I say, things are looking positive on the Haaland situation, and we'll be keeping our ears very close to the wall to see if we can hear any information coming from the Manchester City camp. Of course, we'll be updating you on all of that stuff on tomorrow's deadline stream, so I hope to see you guys there. Speaking of the deadline stream, I think we get early team news on Newcastle as well, which is pretty positive, because Gordon, with Isaac and Wilson being injured, there's a good chance that Gordon starts as a central striker against Luton, and that's going to be a really nice pick, because obviously he's a very cheap midfielder, out of position, in good form, and could do very well there. So Gordon is definitely going to be a really popular player to bring in. Our experts seem to love this player. You know, when we've got a game week so dominated by Haaland, it's actually nice to see another alternative transfer that you guys can potentially bring in. Gordon is that guy. Outside of that, we've got a few people bringing in De Bruyne who maybe didn't bring him in last game week. He's going to still continue to be popular over the next couple of weeks. Trippier as well. Trippier's back in fashion, which is good to say. Some of you guys already own Trippier, in which case, yeah, congratulations. You are back in business. We've got a couple of other Newcastle players here as well ahead of their good run. Botman and Dubravka. So yeah, 4 out of the top 8 transfers in among experts are Newcastle players. Also, a couple of transfers in for Jota, a couple of transfers in for Elise, but the trends really are towards the top. Haaland and Gordon are the 2 expert picks to bring into your FPL teams this game week. So let's, based on this information, let's suggest some transfers. So the question on so many people's lips is, how are we going to bring in Erling Haaland into our teams? And I know you guys are wrestling with this one, but as far as our experts are concerned, there are only 3 ways of doing this. Now, the first option is to sell Julian Alvarez and bring in Haaland. We know Julian Alvarez is not a good long-term pick anymore. His minutes are going to be reduced as we go through. I still think he will get a few minutes this game week, but it's going to get less and less as we go on. So therefore, as a long-term transfer, Alvarez to Haaland is a certain upgrade and a really nice transfer to make, so long as you do have that money in the bank ready to go. But with so many people selling Salah and Son, you guys probably do have the money to do this. So I would imagine this would be pretty easy to do. What is not as easy to do is Archer or a Mubama, or, you know, whoever your third forward is that's probably sitting on your bench right now. Upgrading them to Haaland might be a little bit more difficult unless you can free up some more cash. But it's definitely another way where our experts are looking to bring in Haaland, upgrading their third forward in order to do it, and maybe benching one of their midfielders and going to a 3-4-3 formation. So that's definitely on the cards right now. And the third way of doing it is to sell a player who is potentially injured. The likes of Isaac, João Pedro, these players who we're not sure if they're going to be available for Game Week 23. It's a pretty easy decision to remove those players for Haaland. Now, what you will notice on this, on these trends, what you see in front of you is that there's no mention of a Darwin, there's no mention of Solanke, and there's no mention of a Watkins. And if you have those 3 forwards in your FPL team right now, and guys, let me know in the comments if you have that, your front line currently, if it is Darwin, Watkins, Solanke, then I feel sorry for you because there is no easy sell out of those three. I believe Watkins had like one transfer out, but no one's selling Solanke. No one's looking, well, a couple of transfers out for Darwin based on his potential injury, but I think Darwin's actually going to be fine against Arsenal. There's been no double game week announcement, so maybe that leans towards selling Darwin as well. There's no correct answer there, but in general, all of our experts are trying desperately to avoid selling those three players. Darwin, Watkins, and Solanke. So try, if you can, guys, to not sell those players. If possible. If you do have to sell one of them, it's really difficult. All I would really advise personally is don't sell Solanke. If there's no double game week announcement before the deadline, and it doesn't look like there will be, maybe Darwin is actually the player to sell ahead of Arsenal, because maybe Liverpool don't get a double game week in 25 like we predicted, which is, I don't know, weird. I have to say, it is weird, but it could definitely happen at this point because the Premier League are leaving it so late, and there doesn't really seem to be a reason why they would be leaving it so late to make that double game week announcement. So yeah, maybe you could sell Darwin, maybe you could sell Watkins, but you know, do you really want to sell Watkins ahead of Sheffield United? Probably not. Darwin against Arsenal is a little bit easier so long as there's no double game week announcement. So yeah, it's a tough situation for a lot of people. So in an ideal world, guys, you are looking to sell Alvarez, a cheap bench forward, or an injured forward in order to get Erling Haaland into your team. Those are the suggested transfers to bring in Haaland. Let's have a little look elsewhere as well. So players like Pascal Gross, Bowen, obviously have been brought in recent game weeks, but a lot of our expert managers are looking to just, you know, cut ties with these players. You know, it didn't work out. The experiment hasn't worked out. There's no reason to say the experiment won't work out in the future. Easy for me to say. Yeah, Bowen and Gross, you know, they could do well in the future, but at the same time, how much patience are you going to have with these players when there are so many tempting players right now, like Gordon and De Bruyne? So making a move from the likes of Pascal Gross, Jared Bowen, and moving them to a Gordon or a De Bruyne is definitely a kind of transfer you can consider making. In terms of Trippier, a few people will look to buy Trippier this week. I would say the only way I would do that is if there was a defender I had in my team that I really don't like right now. So Colwill, for example, injured, easy player to move to Trippier. That's what a few of our experts are doing. Those removing Colwill are, in general, bringing in Trippier. There's not really too many other defenders that are being sold heavily. You know, you guys probably got Porro, Estupinian, maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold. These are really not players that are popular players to remove for Trippier, so maybe you just stick with what you have. But if you have a defender you really don't like and you don't want in the future, then that is the time you would buy a player like Kieran Trippier. And with that said, guys, we do need to look at captaincy, and it's an interesting week. So our experts game week 23 captain picks are as followed. First of all, we have a clear winner again. Are we back to old times, guys? It feels like we're back in, you know, maybe earlier this season or all of last season where everyone just captains Haaland every single game week. Is that going to be a bit boring? I'm sure we're going to get tired of it eventually. But right now, it is not quite nearing the 80 and 90% we have seen in the past. We are still only at 64% captaincy rate for Haaland. And I think part of that is because there is not a standout captain elsewhere. So it is still maybe an opportunity to go differential this week. This might be your last opportunity to go differential with your captaincy, because after this game week, it's going to be all about Erling Haaland every single game week. And if you don't captain him, and if he does well, you're going to be screwed. This week, you're only going to be a little bit screwed. Still be pretty screwed, but not totally screwed. So yeah, Haaland is our experts captain pick for this game week. He is the standout. He has got that heaviest trend by a long distance among top FPL managers. So yeah, Captain Haaland, if you haven't made your mind up yet, you just want a straight answer. The straight answer is Captain Haaland. But he's not the only option. There are a few other differentials with a little bit of interest in them. So first of all, the likes of De Bruyne and Watkins, both on 8% there. I think both of these are interesting picks if you don't have faith in Haaland to deliver this game week, which I think is, you know, it's a fine opinion. It's absolutely fine to have that opinion. I definitely see where you're coming from there. Yeah, so you could go De Bruyne and Watkins. They are kind of the alternate options. Gordon is there on 7% as well. So obviously there's still a decent amount of trend for these players as a captain. These are not like rogue, lonely managers picking these players as captains. There are numbers of, you know, top managers selecting these players as captains. So definitely players you want to consider. Outside of that, we do get to some lower numbers. Cole Palmer, 4% against Wolves. Solanke, 4% against Nottingham Forest. These players, look, they're fine. They're decent picks, but can they match the likes of Erling Haaland? Well, to be fair, maybe. But I guess we'll see. 3% captaining Trippier against Luton, which I thought was absolutely crazy. I did not expect to see this one at all. I guess the Trippier hype is well and truly back. And finally, Diogo Jota, 2% against Arsenal. And just quickly on Jota, a few people have mentioned this in my video comments this week, so I may as well address it here because this is the last video of the week. But yeah, a few people said, Jota, Dan, surely Jota is a phenomenal FPL pick. Have you seen his record against Arsenal? It doesn't matter that Arsenal are a tough team. Jota has an amazing record against Arsenal, so surely he's a great player to bring in. Surely he is a great captain. I'm still personally of the opinion that if you don't have Jota already, you can afford to wait one more game week before bringing him in if you have other priorities in your team elsewhere. You know, if you want to get a Haaland, if you want to get a Gordon, if you want to get a Trippier, then I would do those transfers before you do the Jota transfer. And the reason is this. Yes, Jota does have a great record against Arsenal, but the problem is with that is that his great record against Arsenal is all when Arsenal were not really the team they are today. So Jota actually, in his last 3 appearances against Arsenal, hasn't scored a goal. In fact, the last time he scored against Arsenal was around 2 years ago now. So this idea that Jota has a fantastic record against Arsenal, yes, he does, but not really the strong Arsenal team we see today that have really, really improved over the last couple of years. So I do still think Jota is a fantastic player to have in your FPL team. And yeah, he's definitely a player you should consider buying. But if you're asking me, you know, is Jota guaranteed to do well against Arsenal? I don't think that is the case. You know, last few games has suggested that Jota is not going to do phenomenal against Arsenal. But I don't really pay too much attention to those kind of records against certain teams anyway, particularly if a lot of the data is very much historical. I do like to see what is happening more recently and the tactical matchups, and things are going to change over the course of 2 years, and I believe they have. So yes, Jota's still a fantastic pick. He really, really is. I'm not knocking him, but to suggest that he is, you know, going to be a world beater against Arsenal, I think that is maybe untrue. But maybe that's some Arsenal bias coming into it. Just wanted to put that one out there, though, guys, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, because if I've got it wrong, I want you guys to tell me. Yeah, I'm happy to hold my hands up if I am. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I think Jota could still score against Arsenal, but I don't think, you know, some kind of 15-pointer is guaranteed any more so than anyone else on this particular list of great captain options. So yeah, there we go. Those are your captains for Game Week 23, according to our experts. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. It's been a really, really tight deadline to get all of the content out. Only 3 videos this week. I'm sorry we couldn't do more, but there literally just not been enough time. But hopefully you have enjoyed them anyway. Make sure you do go check out another one if you haven't done already. Drop a like, do subscribe, and we will be back tomorrow morning for another deadline stream, which I'm really, really looking forward to. And hopefully we're going to get some early team news as well. Fingers crossed, guys, on that one. So I'll see you there, and I will see you later, mates.